What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other great host of this show, Nick. And Nick, Rams got another win. They're 6-6 on the season. The next 5 games are extremely crucial to see where they net out in terms of the playoff push. But first and most importantly, how are you, my good brother?
I'm good. I mean, we're back to 500 yet again. It's a situation that we know all too well. And now you have a really tough opponent coming in next week with the Bills. So it's a weird season, but you beat a team that you absolutely had to beat, and you're still in the hunt for the division.
Celebrating a victory Monday. I just want to apologize to all Rams fans because we didn't have a preview episode for this game, obviously, with the holiday kind of contradicting everything and conflicting with our scheduling time. So just want to apologize, but it is a victory Monday. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and everybody got to enjoy some time off. And everybody got to enjoy a Rams win on Sunday, which is most important considering the state of this team. Obviously, the Saints, aren't the cream of the crop, but the Rams haven't had a ton of success going into New Orleans, with the exception of the 2018 NFC Championship and getting victories there. It's a tough place to play. We know the Saints' defense on both sides of the ball in terms of passing and rushing is not the best. They're 24th against the run. They're 30th against the pass. In terms of total defense, they're 30th overall. So it was a game we had to absolutely win. And it was a game where they were shut out in the first half. They had 0 first half points in this game. The last time that happened was the 2018 Super Bowl. And this is a shout out to one of our listeners, Jeff. Jeff had provided a stat that the Rams' first win since 2009, when not scoring any points in the first half of a game, was 2009. Rams went 1-15 that season. They beat Detroit the last game of the season. Rams averaged 10.9 points per game that season. Right now, they're at 21.2 points per game in 2024 so far. So, a couple of things that we wanted to address. First, obviously, Kyren had improved in this game, but against a struggling rush defense. Matthew Stafford play action, some of the red zone scenarios, I thought they were much better in that regard. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone, and defense stepped up late. So, at least you're able to kind of tip your hat on a couple of phases, but you're going to have to play a perfect football game against Buffalo in your home stadium in order to kind of get the ball moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's a total tale of two halves. You start that game, once again, you're complaining that your expensive offense is doing nothing. Time of possession is completely askew. Defense is on the field the entire time, and it's 3 and out. The runs look okay, but you can't really get anything going. And then
Saints had 25 plays to 3 plays. I think it was in the first
quarter.
First quarter, and then first 10 minutes in the second quarter. So
it was just a really bad start. So you're starting to think like, all right, can the season just end at this point? Like, it's kind of over. Like, these guys are not responding. It doesn't make sense why the offense is this bad. And then they completely respond immediately after halftime. And I was just getting flashbacks of this 2022 season, or is it 2023, when they lost to Andy Dalton in the Dome in New Orleans. And I was just like, that really felt like a game back then that they could have won and they lost. I was just getting the same energy from this game, but they responded. So now you're at a position where everything is really in play again. And, you can start looking forward to Buffalo and start getting a little, there are some things in this game that you can hang your hat on. Like you said, the runs were really good. Blake Corum, also on top of Kyren Williams, looked really good. So you just got to be able to do what you did in that second half through the whole game.
Both Corum and Kyren averaged over 5 yards per carry. Kyren had 5+ carries of 10 yards. So no, he had 5 carries of 10+ yards in this game. So he played a pretty good football game. And you heard how he responded in terms of post game when McVay was giving out game balls. He's like, nobody wants to mess with us. This is the kind of identity that we want to have. And it gets things rolling with the offensive line. First time in 13 weeks that the offensive line was fully healthy and you weren't missing any starters, which was great. So here's where we net out in terms of the standings right now. So NFC West, Seahawks are 7-5. They're in first in the division. Cardinals are 6-6. Rams are 6-6. In third place right now. And then the 49ers are in the basement at 5-7. 49ers fans will still tell you that they have 5 rings. But in February, we will be celebrating the 30th anniversary of the 49ers not winning the Super Bowl.
Crazy.
So, something to kind of keep your eyes on because the 49ers aren't mathematically eliminated. And the way that the schedule shakes out, obviously we have Buffalo at home next weekend, and then you're away versus San Francisco on Thursday Night Football, coming off of a short week against Buffalo. So that's, it's going to be Rams 49ers. Kyle Shanahan's going to, quote unquote, be coaching for his job. Obviously, they lost CMC. Fred Warner's all banged up, but that's still going to be one that you got to kind of circle and make sure that you're prepared to play.
Yeah, they're going to come to play that game on Thursday no matter what. I mean, statistically, they're still not out of the division. I know it, like, right now it looks like it with Seahawks having a great comeback and us winning. But the Cardinals and literally every single team in our division is still actively fighting for that spot.
Very much so. Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting season, way to end the season, right? Because you got the Cardinals at home and you got the Seahawks at home to end the season. So both of those games are going to be highly competitive. They're most likely going to be fighting for the division title. And you're not going to get a wild card spot in this division just based on how everything's shaken out. So 4-1 is the goal. You're only 4-point underdogs to the Buffalo Bills as of right now. So there's a chance for an upset. Buffalo played in their home environment in the snow. 49ers couldn't get any traction. If that was the Rams' defense, they probably would have been in the exact same situation. So, I mean, Buffalo is playing in their home stadium in the snow. Like, that's exactly what they could have asked for against the 49ers team that's banged up and is struggling. And Josh Allen right now is a favorite to win MVP. So you got 2 of 3 weeks you're playing Saquon Barkley, who is second in odds right now to win the MVP, and then Josh Allen coming into your home stadium. So it's going to be tough to overcome. The Rams in December, this is courtesy of @Nick_PLE. He said, for what it's worth, the Rams are 11-5 at home in December under McVay. One of those losses was in 2017 against San Fran when our starters were sitting because the Rams had already clinched the playoff spot. And then another was in 2022 without Stafford, Cup, and AD against Seattle. So technically 11-3 in December at home under Sean McVay. So this is usually when they kind of start to kick it up a little bit and they start to play really good football. And I think the areas where they really need to improve and have improved over the past couple of weeks, red zone, turnovers, and situational play calling. And it seems like that's all kind of starting to come together a little bit more now.
Yeah, if you can really go 4-1 against that stretch, I mean, and if you really look at it, it is entirely possible. I don't know if they're a team that right now can put together all of all 3 phases working for an entire stretch like that, because
I don't think they are either. Yeah.
Huh?
I don't think they are either.
Yeah.
It's been too shaky. They've been a roller coaster week in and week out. They lose to inferior teams. You lost to Miami, you lost to Green Bay, obviously had an opportunity to win, but they're not an inferior team. Chicago, those games all stick out. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. So to have confidence that this team is just going to roll and win 4 out of 5 games to end the season and end the year 10-7 and in first place in the division seems a little bit delusional, but crazier things have happened in the NFL.
I mean, absolutely. It just feels like I said this about the Eagles game and the Bills game. One of those 2 games feels like you're going to have to win, because I don't know if you can go 3-0 against your divisional opponents to end the season. So you really feel like you have to pick up this Buffalo game to feel like really confident. And looking at Buffalo with Josh Allen as the MVP favorite, like you were saying, and how McDermott is undefeated against McVay, it just feels like a game that, the fact that we're only 4-point underdogs is shocking. I mean, we were 3-point underdogs against the Eagles, and we got our brakes blown off.
Yep.
So
I will say that the Commanders and the Ravens both scored less points than the Rams did in both of those games. And last 3 Eagles games, they went Commanders, Rams, Ravens, and Commanders and Ravens scored less offensive points. Obviously not something crazy, but I did feel a little bit more encouraged about the last 5 games of the season after watching Philadelphia go into Baltimore and beat the brakes off the Ravens.
Yeah, I feel like our game was the real test for them.
Yeah,
for the Eagles, and they beat us pretty well. And now it just feels like they have fully arrived, and they could legitimately win the rest of their games, and maybe even pick up a 1 seed if the lines start dropping some. So
Yeah,
I mean,
there was an opportunity to get a lead in that Eagles game, to start off with a lead, play with a lead. But once the Eagles get a lead, they're so physical up front at the point of attack that they could just control the clock and run the ball right down your throat. So, they're pretty much unstoppable once they get a significant lead. And that's the way I want to see the Rams play. And Kyron Williams, I thought, was really good in this game. Blake Corum actually started the game. He had 8 carries, over 5 yards per carry. Kyron Williams rushed 15 times for 104 yards and a touchdown, with over half of his rushes producing positive EPA at 60%, which was the highest mark of, I think, since 2023, I think it was, and second highest of his career. So 5 carries of 10-plus yards, as I mentioned. He was really efficient outside of the tackles. He rushed 10 times for 83 yards outside of the tackles, plus 30 yards over expected. And on all runs, Williams generated plus 36 rushing yards over expected, his most in a game since week 15 of 2023. So Kyron played a really good game. I thought Blake Corum brought a necessary spark. You want a little bit of Sonic and Knuckles, right, in that kind of situation. You want a little bit of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So to be able to kind of replicate some of that success is where this Rams offense is going to be able to thrive. Obviously, with Matthew Stafford, you get him under center, you get him in pistol, you get him in shotgun. The Rams are a little bit predictable in terms of their passing game. They had a couple of really well-designed pass plays down the field off of play action. But I think for the most part, you're getting exactly what you would expect out of a Sean McVay offense at this point of the season. There's nothing kind of net new that is being rolled out. It's kind of variations and different looks within the same play call, which is, I think, what's frustrating a lot of Rams fans.
Yeah, I would say it's really frustrating, but I think how they responded in that second half, I thought was, everything that you could have wanted watching that game, because they're doing more play action. They have that great screen pass to Puka to score that touchdown. It felt like they were trying to move away from what wasn't working because of the offensive line struggles. It's like you're getting the ball out of his hands fast, or you're rolling him out so they can't just sack him immediately. So I thought there was some real positivity there, just overall on offense on like a game-changing level.
And that's where the offensive line has struggled so far this season. It's in pass protection. They've been much better with the run game, but in pass protection, they've been suspect. And Nick, you're totally right in terms of the play action call out. Matthew Stafford used play action on half of his dropbacks against the Saints. His highest play action usage rate in a game in the next-gen stats era. So that's since 2016. He finished 7 of 12 for 127 yards, and both touchdowns were on play action at 10.6 yards per attempt versus 4.7 yards per attempt without play action. So they're actually stretching the field a little bit more. And in a season where you're really trying to introduce new ideas, but kind of build off of some of your successes of last year, all those kind of things are really important to be able to execute on. So on the season, Stafford currently ranks among the top 3 quarterbacks in play action completions, 87, which is second, passing yards, 1,151, which is third, and touchdowns, 8 total, which is third. So when Matthew Stafford's in play action, you better watch out, because he's, they're really well-designed play calls. Some of McVay's longer developing pass plays, there's more time for the receiver to get open, create separation, and get down the field. Those are all things that you're looking for. And in terms of red zone play calling, Nick, you called this out a couple of minutes ago. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone. They only had 3 penalties for 30 yards in this game, and they had no turnovers. So there was 3 areas where they really needed to improve. And in terms of what they did with Puka Nacua in the screen game, this is a really good representation of how to make things easy for yourself in the red zone. Quick little play action to Kyron Williams. Everybody thinks he's getting the ball. You find Puka on a screen. You have Cooper Kupp blocking. Same with Colby Parkinson. Look at Cooper Kupp at the top right-hand side of your screen. Just seal that crease. And Puka just hardly gets touched and is able to walk into the end zone and celebrate for, I think it was the Rams' first passing touchdown in the red zone of the game. And then their next red zone attempt, this is their bread and butter. Just a simple out route to Demarcus Robinson. And you know what? I don't know if you could do this without Cooper Kupp, because Cooper Kupp just takes the outside defender completely out of the picture. And it's Demarcus Robinson for an easy 5 and out. He makes the catch, and I think the Rams have completed that pass play in the red zone at least 4 or 5 times this season, whether it's to Demarcus or Cooper Kupp. So
Yeah.
Doing a
Yeah.
really good job of that.
That DeMarcus play is just 100%. We've seen that time and time again with the team. Just like a huge shout out. I felt like they were getting all of the wide receivers involved too, because that play action to Tutu just felt so similar to the first touchdown pass Stafford threw as a Ram, which I believe was to Tutu. Am I crazy?
Van Jefferson.
Jefferson, right, Jefferson.
Yeah. Well, they're doing a little bit more of the play action game. You saw a reverse to Tutu out. Well, it seems like they're not utilizing the jet sweeps as frequently, but you're still calling guys in motion behind the line of scrimmage to kind of get that look. And one of the things too that Nick, you and I were talking about before we jumped on this episode, we're utilizing running backs as pass catchers. Like we were looking at Kyren Williams's targets over the last 3 weeks.
Really done it.
He's got one target throughout the last 3 weeks, which is just really, really strange because you're looking at it and in terms of targets, so you have 3 in week 1, 5 in week 2, 2 in week 3, 4 in week 4, and then it kind of started to drop off. Then they got back to Minnesota. He had 7 targets, which I felt like was their best offensive performance of the year. So I think to utilize Kyren Williams and Blake Corum in the pass game is extremely essential because you see how well the screen game works. You have great downfield blockers with your tight ends and your receivers. Utilize it more frequently. And
that's what
offense should open up.
From the beginning of McVay's career, that was big with Todd Gurley. They would do that, and then they trusted Darrell Henderson to do that. Maybe there is a little bit of lack of trust with with Corum and Williams right now to catch these balls. Maybe that's something that they're not seeing in practice time, where it's like they're struggling making the catches, but they're better just on the ground if you give it to them directly. But speaking of lack of trust, I'm not sure if you can 100% pin this on Cardi, but that 4th and 3, when they go for it in the first quarter, how much of that is not trusting Cardi and how much of it is them just thinking that they had a really nice play there that they wanted to just score? And I don't really know.
Yeah, the Stafford 10-yard overthrow on that play to Cooper Kupp. That's usually one that they hit, in their sleep. But again, 4th and 3, screen game is something you could utilize. You only need to pick up 3 yards.
Yeah, why are you going for the whole enchilada there? You don't need it.
Yeah, I like those kind of situations because you saw with Puka Nacua in single coverage later on in the game on a big 3rd down, on 3rd down and 5, and he draws pass interference and he scores a touchdown 2 plays later. So I like the one-on-one situations. Usually Matthew Stafford makes a good throw there, and it just didn't happen in that regard. But again, get your running backs involved as pass catchers. If you're a running back, what is the one thing that you really want to do is you want to have the ball in space. You're so used to getting the ball in the backfield and having to run through a gap and you're getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. And to catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage and have a full head of steam and confidence in your blockers downfield is there's so many Todd Gurley highlights. There's one specifically where he catches one in the backfield and breaks it for 85 yards, which is at the top of everybody's Todd Gurley highlight list. And I'm not saying Kyren can do that. He doesn't have that kind of breakaway speed. Blake Corum probably could, but it's definitely something they need to do to get these guys involved a little bit more in the pass game.
Yeah, and you know what? I have faith that they will. I would like to see them try that more. Especially you're gonna have to pull everything out of the playbook this week against Buffalo. You got to go in there and you got to really be an offensive first team because Josh Allen's just so hard to stop. It's even if the play breaks down and you have perfect coverage, you still need a spy on him to make sure that he doesn't pick up 17 yards on the ground because he's absolutely capable of doing that. Which is where I thought Hurts killed us too.
Yeah. Mobile quarterbacks have killed us this season, whether it was Brock Purdy, it was Kyler Williams, or Kyler Murray. Josh Allen is, going to be a really tough test. Jalen Hurts. So, that's where they've struggled so far this season. So that's going to be really tough. But I do want to just call out Puka real quick. He surpassed 2,000 career receiving yards in his 24th career game yesterday rather. He tied Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase as the second fastest players to reach 2,000 receiving yards since the 1970 merger, and Odell was the first one to accomplish it. since whatever that merger was, 1970.
He would have definitely been able to do that had he not been injured this year too. He would have been able to hit 21 like Odell.
He would. Well, yeah, it's just total games played, so they're not counting the injuries. I agree there was an opportunity to potentially do it sooner. But in terms of defense, obviously you have Jared Verse. Jared Verse called game in this situation. Derek Carr just has no clock in his head. He doesn't feel pressure whatsoever. He did make that one nice throw to MVS, which exposed Darius Williams, and then he did it again on a 2-point conversion.
Yeah,
but he's got no expiring clock in his head. And Jared Verse this season, he generated a team-high 7 pressures, including a game-sealing pressure on 4th down, which led to an incompletion with just over a minute left in regulation. No other Rams defender in this game generated more than 2 pressures. Jared Verse now has 58 total pressures and 4.5 sacks this season, tied for 3rd most in the NFL and the most of any rookie entering Sunday Night Football of Week 13. So
I'm going to have to bring this up because I feel like we talk about it in text threads with our dad. We talk about it before the episodes start. Our defense is really good and they're young and they have a complete identity and we're a really good team on defense with this young core. And they're going to continue to grow and be great. On the offensive side, this year, do you see how it plays out? And if you win the NFC West, you run it back? Or do you think that there is let's press the reset button and move on from Stafford and, trade Cup and that whole chestnut?
I don't think that they're going to win the NFC West this year. I just genuinely don't have a feeling that they're going to. Like last year was kind of a miracle to win 7 of 8 games down the stretch. I thought before the season had started, without the injuries and such a slow start, that they were going to be able to win 11 games this season. But I feel like 9 is kind of the number that I'm sitting on right now. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're going to have to reevaluate in this offseason. Like Cooper Kupp's going to be 32 years old before the season starts next year. I mean, he's such a great blocker in space, and he's obviously a great decoy, but he's not a dynamic pass catcher. And you're seeing it with Puka Nacua. You saw Jordan Whittington return that kick yesterday. He's going to be a dynamic player on this team. Yeah. So, I mean, it's something to take into consideration. I would just like to be in a situation where Matthew Stafford's under contract again next year, and you bring in a developmental quarterback behind him to kind of sit and learn from him that isn't Stetson Bennett, that isn't Jimmy Garoppolo. So, it's a really, really tough situation. But they do have some young pieces offensively to be able to kind of hang their hats on. Their offensive line, I think, is definitely going to need to be reshuffled. Yeah. You got guys like Alaric Jackson, who's only on a 1-year tender. Rob Havenstein is really getting up there in age. So I think your tackles need to be addressed. I think there's definitely some reevaluation coming for sure. You're not going to get the same thing next year.
No, the quarterback is the big question, and I just don't know how they're going to deal with Stafford. I mean, like, if they wanted to sign him to more than 1 year this year, they would have done it. And I feel like they're not getting the results that they want right now. So I think changes in that position are looming. And then when that changes, I think you feel a little better about moving on from Cup, even though it would be a shame to see him in another jersey. But
yeah, I mean, Stafford. Yeah, if you lose Stafford, you probably lose Cooper Kupp too.
Yeah, I would think so. I just think Stafford, he came in. He was almost like a hired gun. Came in, did his job. Like I don't have as much of like a kinship to him as like if he's on the Jets next year, I'm not going to be like, oh, dude, Stafford in green looks terrible. But like if Kupp is on Kansas City, I'm going to be like, this sucks. I don't want to see him in red ever. Like, this is terrible.
That's fair. I don't know if people understand, and there's new Rams fans in this organization, but you've had Jared Goff, who's 4th in MVP voting right now, and you've had Matthew Stafford in the Los Angeles Rams' second era. So 2016 to today, 2024. Like there's not a lot of bad quarterback play that has come through this building. No. I mean, even when, your starting quarterback's hurt, I'm not want to talk about John Wolford, but he played pretty decent football until I think it was that playoff game where he got knocked out against Seattle.
He did okay.
And then you had Baker Mayfield. Like, I thought Baker played really well. Carson Wentz played really well in this system at the end of last year. So, I mean, you're just not used to like really piss poor quarterback play. Baker Mayfield, first pick in the draft. Matthew Stafford, first pick in the draft. Jared Goff, first pick in the draft. Carson Wentz, second pick in the draft. Like, these guys are highly talented players. So, like, I would just, if something weird happens with the quarterback position, somebody shakes free eventually, like, somebody like a Joe Burrow or a Justin Herbert, and you can get your hands on that. Like, that would be the best case scenario. But, like, this quarterback, it's not going to happen. But I'm just saying this quarterback class is not great. I mean, you want to look ahead to next year, potentially, like with guys like Arch Manning and Matthew Stafford's godson, Dylan Raiola. Like, those kind of guys are needle movers, first overall picks, guys that you would invest for the future. So it's tough.
Yeah. I don't love the idea of bringing Stafford back and his replacement. I feel like that's just a ball of stress if you're doing that. Because then it's like the Kirk Cousins where it's like half the fan base is just like bench him now. Like we had Penix. Do it right now. Yeah,
but that could set up Atlanta for the next 10 years. Having somebody kind of sit and learn. The sitting and learning thing does make sense. Right? You saw Jordan Love.
It worked for Love and it worked for Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
That's it, though. Who else has it worked for?
I remember back with the Eagles when Carson Wentz was a starting quarterback for 4 or 5 years, and they drafted Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts sat under Wentz for a little while, learned everything not to do,
and Wentz was already bad. Yeah.
I like the idea of like, okay, you got a high-end pick, a high-end quarterback, and then you get somebody in the second or third round that can really play, but just needs a little bit more time to develop, that isn't the first overall pick, and have high expectations. That would be fun to me. I don't know who that guy is yet, but I think that would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. It's going to be a really loud offseason. So
yeah, I was going to say we'll talk about that plenty, I'm sure, in the offseason. Right now, though, let's get through these next 4. Home versus Buffalo, away versus San Francisco, away versus the Jets. Next 3-game stretch is really tough. I mean, I know that the Jets and the Niners aren't playing great football right now, but you got to travel to San Francisco, and then you got to travel to New Jersey and play the Jets in a freezing cold environment, likely right before Christmas. And then you got to host 2 division rivals who are going to be fighting for number 1 in the playoffs. So, it depends on how this season, the conversation that we're having right now is going to be determined 100% based on how the next 5 games roll.
I just think in a situation, if you are Green Bay or Minnesota or the Commanders, and you're looking at potential NFC West opponents that you're going to play in that first round, I would think that they are licking their chops to play us versus a Seattle or a Cardinals, which leads me to believe that I don't think we're taking the division
right now. Yeah, now I would agree, but things could change over the next 3-4 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Definitely,
they could get hot.
100%.
Cardinals in December do not have that same kind of record that Sean McVay has. Seattle has a first-year coach this year, so those are kind of things just to kind of keep in mind too. Like, things could go south for them. They could go really well for the Rams. Hopefully the Niners stay at the basement. But, it's wishful thinking. It is very optimistic. And I understand, just based on how the first 12 games of the season have gone, why fans can be pessimistic in so many different ways.
Yeah. I'm not as pessimistic as me as tweeting 5 minutes into the game that it's over and the Rams.
Literally 9 minutes and 8 seconds left in the first quarter.
Yeah, that's on me, everyone.
Sorry. That's fine. I get it. I mean, you have a really good feel for how these games start. Like, if that this team starts slow, you get you were spot on in the Eagles game last week.
Yeah.
You were like, okay, this game's over. And it was, I think, very, very beginning of the first half.
It was right after Kyron fumbled. I was like, the team has never been able to respond this season after Kyron fumbles. And I was just like, I don't see it happening now. Like, you have to play essentially perfect football to stay in this game with the Eagles. Yeah. And they just couldn't do that.
Can't turn the ball over. Can't miss field goals. Same thing's going to apply to the Bills when they come into this stadium this upcoming weekend. But just want to thank everybody for listening. We'll be back for a Bills preview later on this week As always, again, appreciate you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, go Rams.
Go Rams. If anybody's going to the tailgate, jump through some tables for the Rams Mafia.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I'll take my mind off the game.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Peace.